The EU wants to kill microtransactions. Thank God. This has been, and I really think that microtransactions in games, it's just there's too many of them now. There's way, way too many of them. W? Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Well, the EU are up to regulatory shenanigans again. The question is, will this be good for us or will it be bad for us? And with that in mind, here's a quote. Let's not kill one of Europe's few tech success stories. That was a rather damning statement given by the CEO of Supercell, and its latest shot in a war that has been silently raging since April, because that's when the EU unveiled new guidelines for microtransactions.
If your idea of tech success is guilting and tricking kids into spending their parents' money, I wouldn't really say that's a tech success. That's like saying a Nigerian prince email scam is a tech success.
Actions in gaming. And now, after a summer of adjustment, the industry is speaking out. Now, obviously, in one way, that's all kind of hilarious, and we do sort of think, yeah, you've rammed our games full of this bullshit, a lot of it has felt fairly manipulative, it's probably good that someone is getting involved. In big picture, that is what I think.
I do think so. I think they should regulate microtransactions, absolutely. Any sort of payment, basically, I think they should make it to where you can only buy things in video games for the local currency. So there are no gems, there are no tokens, there are no crystals, there are no prima gems, there are no, icons, there are no tickets, there are no coins, there are no bars, there is no silver, there is no gold, there is just dollars or European fucking whatever the fuck they use over there, European euros, anything, right? No V-Bucks. Yes, local pricing only. Now, I would be willing to compromise with local pricing being required next to the pricing in terms of the gems and in terms of everything else. I would be okay with that compromise, but even that I think is just, it's obfuscation.
Said.
Because again, the reason why they have those tickets and all those different currencies, the reason why they exist is so you don't know how much money you're spending, right? It's to confuse you. It's to abstract the money that you're spending and to separate you from the dollar amount, and that way you're confused. And on a fundamental level, what are you doing? You're misleading the customer. Well, I don't think you should have a business model that's built around misleading the customer. That's bullshit.
People in the industry are saying that this will ruin everything that they've built. I mean, just look
at... Maybe you shouldn't have built a piece of shit.
What the Supercell dude said. Basically, according to a lot of them, they say these regulations would worsen the player experience and also wouldn't improve protections.
How is the player experience improved by having to spend money in your game? It's not.
Certainly is a bit that I'm at least interested in. They also say that this would cause widespread collateral damage to one of EU's biggest tech success stories.
Thank God.
So here's the thing. He's not entirely wrong. He's not entirely right. There's definitely stuff for us to talk about, and this one's going to be a goddamn trip. And I get this all can be a lot. We've got tariff and trade negotiations affecting everything from Switch 2 pricing to gaming privacy laws, and that means you need a full picture. And that's where Ground News comes in. It's where I go to cut through the clickbait and to understand what's happening. They're today's video sponsor.
For me, the way I get my news is I just make it up.
And here's the story of the EU pushing back against Trump's tech regulation threats. We've got 107 sources here covering it, but a striking 63% on the left, 29% in the center, and only 8% on the right. That's an imbalance that put it straight into Ground News' blind spot feed.
I believe it.
And the headline comparison is kind of fascinating here. You've got
make up
Le
statistics.
Monde, a left-leaning and rated very high factuality outlet, running EU defends its digital rules as sovereign right after Trump's tariff threat. Another outlet, Americans for Tax Reform, who are right-leaning with mixed factuality rating, flips it, saying Trump slams EU digital regulations as discriminatory attack on US giants. So you see the same diplomatic clashes, but opposite heroes and villains. And just those factualities alone show you where you are or are not seeing spin. So Ground actually means what you see is reliable. And when only 8% of right-leaning outlets are touching a major piece of US EU tech news, you're kind of missing how this is playing politically. Now, I get all...
honestly, the reason why is because all these people and what they do is, what do you call it? Like, these news outlets are total fucking propaganda places. Totally full of shit, totally propaganda.
All of this with ground news.
Did you lose your check mark in Twitter? Yeah, because I changed my profile picture.
Vantage plan. It gives you bias ratings from 3 independent agencies, side-by-side headline comparisons, and with, say, their tech interest page, you can just see all the tech stories from all the angles. And if you go to ground.news/Bellular, you'll get 40% off unlimited access with the Vantage plan. That's the plan that I use, and that is the best deal of the year for my subs for limited time. So, if you want to check it out, hit up that link down below.
Wow.
Here's a fun fact to get us going. This was kind of kicked off by a Swedish horse girl game. Yeah,
that's what you get.
Here we are. Let's get into the story. The autumn legislative sessions are starting, and we're right at the end of the consultation period for the Digital Fairness Act. So, would you like some fairness in digital format? Maybe this act is for you. Now, what it is
everything
an
should be fake.
overarching EU legislative agenda that covers loads of tech fields and where they intersect with consumer protections. Now, for our purposes, it includes features like deceptive interface design, where...
You called it? Yeah.
Well, there's all sorts of shady shit that they do. Manipulative elements, addictive elements, and unfair...
Oh, I remember I got that character.
...personalization practices. You might think, oh, I love things...
I remember Emmy rolled for that character, and she spent all of her money and time making that character as good as she possibly could. Mine was still better. And it wasn't even close. Isn't that sad?
To be personalized. Less so whenever a game is trying to exploit you really wanting that next upgrade and is giving you a targeted deal that probably has 900% value or some made-up bullshit like
800% value? I'm about to buy it right now.
It hits consumer vulnerabilities and where people can be exploited. Now, you may remember our coverage from back in April, where we got to talk about the Swedish horse girl game.
Digital currency is bullshit. It's intentionally a scam. It's made to scam you. It's made so you waste your money. That's what it does.
So that's when the EU took on microtransactions. And what happened is that the Consumer Protection Cooperation Network, rolls off the tongue, laid out some new key principles. And this all came as a part of a case made against the Swedish mobile game Star Stables. Now, what we're talking about today...
The Virgin Star Stables versus the Chad Una Musume. You don't hear anything like this happening to Uma Musume, do you? Absolutely not.
The Digital Fairness Act and its consultation period, it is building on those principles from the whole horse game saga. Now, what that means is new systems requiring real monetary value on listings, not just, you know, made-up gem bullshit. Removing...
Wait, so they were watching the stream? Damn!
Multiple currency options, ensuring refunds are available. Imagine that, a refund on a gem. Crazy stuff. And also ending a lot of the FOMO practices. And especially because these things were often targeted toward kids, but also they would apply to everyone because games would need to implement them across the board. Now, at the time, the industry was obviously not really thrilled. They love making money from all of the things that I just listed.
Here's the thing. A lot of these companies make a bunch of money because they're able to hoodwink stupid kids into spending their parents' money. This is a predatory system. It's based off of something that shouldn't be happening. It's fundamentally unethical. And there should be laws and regulations that keep it in check. Anybody that disagrees with that is either getting paid because of it or retarded.
That feel sketchy. And they framed these as new legal theories, as a disruption that could see games pulled from the EU if those games couldn't comply. Think about the poor monetization designers, guys. But where things left off is that the CPC was supposed to work with them, work with the industry to help implement everything. But 6 months later, the industry mood has not improved, and they are quite worried. That open letter from the Supercell CEO, and by the way, Supercell are the Clash of Clans people, so
I'm thinking about going back to Clash of Clans pretty soon. I'm thinking about playing it again.
Some top-tier creative gaming content, that's just one of several press efforts that we've seen in recent weeks. But it's the most striking one from a senior figure. Basically, he says that he doesn't want the EU's 27 billion euro industry harmed by the DFA or the guidelines that came in March.
Of course. Yeah, you don't want to lose money. Okay, yeah, wow, what a surprise. I can't believe it. Oh my God, what a shock. You don't want to lose money.
this year, and he argues that they will, quote, break how many games fundamentally work, that they will harm the player experience, and especially will do this for free-to-play games. He uses a familiar metaphor for how in-game currency works, but it's one that was okay per the legal framework before the new guidelines in April. And basically he talked about theme park tokens. The idea that a family can buy tokens in bulk, or they can buy tokens individually, or they can even win tokens in a theme park. And to him, this is all framed as, quote, convenient and...
Retard argument, retard logic, retard argumentation. The difference is that it's the same as like the difference in like a strip club versus like an online OnlyFans, like or like a casino versus an online website where you can gamble. A casino that you go into has in-person age verification, and you're accompanied by a adult that is there to chaperone you around in the area. If you compare this to video games, these video games do not have that same type of thing. Everybody knows that, and because of that, Q's Live, I get that. I don't want to hear it again. But like I'll look at it later. I don't want to like fucking watch it live. I'll watch it later on. And so anyway, it's not even just kid. It takes advantage of our brain's reward centers to get you to spend money easily and fast. I think that if you want to get into it takes advantage of your brain's reward centers, you would actually end up painting with such a broad brush that you attack all advertising, period, right? And so like I do think some types of advertising maybe should be illegal, but for the most part, I think generally letting adults make adult decisions is good. Letting children make decisions that are against their best interests because of the lack of adults supervision is bad. It's pretty simple, right?
Fun, avoiding repeated cash transactions. You know, the idea you can buy loads of tokens at once. And he then contrasts this with the potential worst case under the new guidelines, where individual parental approval for each token used, including signed contract agreements, regardless of purchase value and all of that, would basically harm the experience.
Exactly, it would. It would harm the... You're right, it would.
He's saying that regardless of purchase value, rides must display a real cost in euros based on a fixed standard, not, you know, a token cost. Now, when children win prizes, they believe that those prizes are worth real money, despite obviously not being able to cash out. In his analogy, the visitors get frustrated and leave. Why? Well, because the experience isn't simpler or safer.
Well, it's simple. It is. The thing is that what's simple for you is getting their money. And maybe it shouldn't be that simple for you to be able to trick a 9-year-old into spending their parents' money. Maybe that shouldn't be simple.
What exists now? So, why change the token system? Well, his argument, he believes the existing frameworks can just be strengthened. You know, improve what we've got. Don't do a big new scary thing. Now, we will come back to how Supercell responds to those existing laws later on in this video. But going on, he suggests these new policies could result in companies...
They're also forcing video game companies that rely on optional purchases of in-game content to look at other business models like advertising-based revenues, which we all know undermines the user experience. Well, how about you just figure out, like... The thing is that if your business requires you to engage in unethical practices in order for it to exist, maybe your business shouldn't exist. That's the main problem. Is that like if you have your business and it's taking advantage of people and it's problematic, that's it.
Using other monetization models. Things like more in-game advertising. And this feeling has actually got a lot of backing. Multiple large European game developers sent a letter to the EU. And I have to say, a massive thank you to one of our members, Neo Nebulosa, for helping us navigate the fun industrial nuances of the continent.
It's legit predatory practices? Absolutely.
For real, this shit's complicated. Now, what happened is that Euractiv saw the letter, and then industry-wide bodies like the European Game Developer Federation also got involved. And they're all very worried, and this is based on legal interpretations of current proposals and what they would mean for them.
What you have to understand is that everything that they do and everything that they say is intentionally structured in a way for them to figure out how to make you give them more money. Their goal isn't to make sure that the consumer experience is as good as possible. Their goal is to make as much money as possible. And you should approach everything that they say with that mindset.
Let's go to the heart of the issue. This fundamentally comes down to a fairly simple question, but it's one with significant legal ramifications, and it's this. Is in-game currency the same as real currency? Because if it's treated as such...
Well, yeah, it's basically the same thing. It's treated the same way. I mean, if you can... Is it the same? It is and it's not, right? I mean, like, that's the answer.
As, quote, digital representations of value, then the company's
trading... It is a digital representation of value. It obviously is. Yeah, I mean, if that's the definition of currency, these are digital representations of value. Nobody can argue otherwise. If you are, you're lying.
In them face significantly more scrutiny. Yep. And if you're thinking about, say, I don't know, banking, crypto, and other things, yeah, you're kind of thinking along the right lines. Because effectively, they would then be a little bit more like Bitcoin under the law. And to be clear, that is the position of the CPC. And therefore it's inherent to the current consultation for the Digital Fairness Act, which is the big thing that would really change a lot. Now, the fundamental argument is that people are putting real money into these systems, and they are getting in return for their real money a digital representation of that money the form of products, like, say, your gems or your Call of Duty points, whatever it may be. So because of that, they should therefore have transparency and safety when they are spending.
Of course. Now, Of course. How could anybody be against that who isn't trying to scam you? Really? It's so obvious.
Those are good, noble goals. But implementation could be a little tricky, and it would mean some humongous changes. Now, we can't just dismiss those things because we like the principles behind the changes. And for the avoidance of doubt, we here are very much behind those principles. And what the industry is putting forward really are based on worst case scenarios. But that doesn't mean that they won't happen, and we should talk about it because it would impact the industry. Now, they already don't trust the EU elements implementing all of this, as flagged by
Well, they don't trust them because they're against their best interests. It's not like they don't trust them for any sort of like a ethical reason. It's just because they're going to cause them to lose money.
Well, that one.
It's the same as how companies are pissed that they have to make it easier to cancel subscriptions. Yes, like in order to cancel a subscription, you shouldn't have to click 3 buttons and go through 3 different web pages and do like a survey. You should just have to be able to click it and that's it. And anybody who's arguing against that just wants to take your money. That's it. That's all they want to do. They want to take your money. They want to scam you.
Excellent video games industry memo newsletter back in April, his sources suggested to him something rather troubling, that before the new guidelines, the CPC did not engage with industry trade bodies, let alone get impact assessments. I know, impact assessments, it's real sexy stuff, but then again, we are dealing with, billions of euro and how the industry literally works.
Yeah.
Now, that's part of why these bodies are emphasizing certain facts. Things like, only 18% of kids are allowed to make purchases, that 95% get
18% of kids? That's like 1 in 5. That's massive. Like, what do you mean, only 18%? That's insane. That's a crazy ratio.
Supervision, and that monthly spending has actually gone down year on year, which is at least a silver lining if you're not a fan of microtransactions. But basically, the industry is putting forward that they see all of this stuff as using a sledgehammer to crack a nut, and basically...
Shouldn't have made the nut. You made the nut. You didn't want the sledgehammer? Why'd you make the nut?
That's why they've been so frustrated. Now, the CPC suggested they would work with the industry after they did their big publication. And without direct leaks, we don't literally know what those discussions looked like over the summer. But based on current reactions, they did not go well. But more than that, apparently, the CPC also didn't work with other EU bodies. Yes, this is really getting all quite complex. People may wonder why, I don't know, nothing ever gets done. Anyway.
Yeah, it's because it's designed that way. It's a bureaucratic entropy that's created intentionally in order to obfuscate any sort of change or benefit for the actual citizens that it's supposed to represent. It happens in every single company. It happens in every single bureaucracy. It happens in every government. It happens in every system. Is that systems continually grow over time, and they do not have culling mechanisms that are able to keep them in check in a way that is healthy, and at that point, then they get worse. That's what happens. That's the way it is.
What it effectively means, the point the industry is trying to get across, right, is that this one group tried to set a new central philosophy on microtransactions, but they kind of did that without getting everyone else involved in the situation involved in what that would look like, which
it's a bureaucratic bullshit.
Messy. And for an example of said mess, we've got to say a big thanks to this pack of Lithuanian RuneScape gold farmers. To put a very messy situation in very simple terms, in Lithuania, currency transfers are tax exempt. So because of this, the gold farmers thought that they would not have to pay value-added tax. But the Revenue Office disagreed. The Revenue Office...
What a surprise that the people that collect the money think that, actually, you know what? We need a little bit more of your money. What a shock.
Believed that the gold farmers weren't trading a currency whenever they were doing their trades. So, yeah, they were like trading a product, and that would mean that they would need to get their value-added tax. Now, they needed clarity on the law here. So what they did is they went to the EU, and they went to a specific bit called the EU Advocate General. And the result of that was a ruling by the EU Advocate General. And that is that in-game currency should be considered as a digital second-hand product, not as a currency in itself.
In-game gold as an electronic service does not merely serve to procure a later consumable benefit in the form of an as yet unspecified service, which the issuer of a voucher would be obligated to supply, but is itself already a consumable benefit. Therefore, it's not a voucher within the meaning of Article 30A within the VAT directive. That's retarded because it can be both. You can spend in-game gold as a direct consumable item, and you can also use it as a currency. This is like saying that you can't melt down quarters, or sorry, it's like saying that because you can melt down quarters and then turn them into like some type of metal, or like pennies and you can turn them into copper, that somehow, oh, well, that means that that means that pennies don't have any value. This is the most retarded, dumb fuck argument, and it's probably made by somebody that has erectile dysfunction with fully gray hair that can't use fucking email. It's either that or a fucking retard. It's embarrassing. Isn't it? What a stupid thing to say.
Now, that's actually quite fun for today's story, because that's actually not how the guidelines from the CPC frame them.
Yes.
Same goes for the Digital Fairness Act proposals as well. And that just makes everything here so much messier. Because different
It's only messy because they're stupid.
Of the EU, different arms of it, are taking different opinions. Obviously, that makes it very hard to get...
The different opinions are because they're stupid. It's obvious. It's so obvious.
Get anything goddamn done. And that's part of why the company seems so pissed off here. To them, the CPC wants compliance with their guidelines, even as another EU judiciary is suggesting another interpretation. So they're, in a way, saying, oh no, look at us, we're caught in the middle, this is a nightmare, what do we do? And honestly, in that case, yeah, they do have a point. It's like different arms of the same body are saying different things about basically the same issue. That's obviously chaos.
Yeah, you want to know what the problem is? It's like the only metaphor, the old metaphor of a blind man, the three blind men and an elephant, right? Feeling different parts of the elephant, explaining what the elephant is, and it's completely different. You feel the trunk, it's like, oh, it's this thing, it's like a snake. You feel the side, it's like a hippo. You feel the legs, it's like maybe like a fucking deer. The reality of this is that the problem is that they're blind. It's that they can't see that it's a fucking elephant to begin with, because the commission and the people that are running this are incompetent and they don't know how to do their jobs. That's the reason why they can't come to a consensus on this, is because they don't fully understand what they're even making decisions on, which is embarrassing. It is absolutely embarrassing. And I think also there is a probably good amount of this that is intentional, malicious dishonesty. They do know it, but they're pretending not to, so they can protect companies that they might be making money from, or they have some sort of value attached to. It's bullshit. The reason why they're either stupid or paid off. Probably
it also
both.
Could get worse with the Digital Fairness Act being implemented next year. And that would mean that, well, everything that they work on, these companies that is, may now need to be changed.
Good.
Changed again to comply with the new requirements.
That's what you get.
Which would be a good thing, going solely off the principles, what we're trying to protect and make better here. But, implementation is often the hard bit, and that is why the companies are very much worried. Oh boy, we're getting there. And
they're not. No. That's a lie. They're not worried about implementation. They're worried about the principle of it. They're worried about the principle of it, and they're worried about the accountability of it. They try to act like implementation is the problem, so they can make an appeal to people that are anti-government by saying that the government is a bureaucracy and ineffective. But the truth is that if the government was effective, it would be an even bigger threat to them. And it's in their best interest the government remains as ineffective as possible. That's why they try to pay people off in the government. That's why they try to continue to reinforce the status quo. This is such a very obvious fucking...
may have noticed in this video is it might all sound a little bit schizo. I mean, here I am in 1 second being very much, look at the things the Swedish Horse Girl game was doing. Yes. That's all pretty sketchy. Let's regulate some of this stuff so that, we don't have exploitative bullshit happening that's, aimed at teens and stuff. And then you'll also see me, talking about the industry's points. And to understand this story,
yes,
I think we've just got to accept a very basic fact. Everyone involved is going to present their argument in the best light that they can.
Of course.
CPC will. The people at Supercell will.
Yes.
I will. You will. We'll pretty much always be trying to put our argument forward in the best way. And the upshot of that is everyone involved, from their perspective, will play up the risk and then downplay anything that will undermine them. And even if we return to the Supercell dude's letter, you can start to pick holes in some of the logic that he puts forward.
Well, yeah, of course you can. If you look right here, I mean, does The Witcher have a bunch of microtransactions? No, it's a completely fucking it's a AAA game that's a premium game. Clash of Clans and Candy Crush, comparing that to The Witcher is dishonest, and anybody that knows anything about video games knows that. And this is what the problem is that this is a letter written by for people that are retarded. They are retarded. They don't know anything about technology. They don't know anything about computers. They don't know anything about video games. And they're just going to go off of what somebody who is into space thinks. That's it.
If you're going to update his analogy to actually be accurate to the real industry, well, then his theme parks would be having 3 or 4 or 5 different types of tokens. Just look at, what you see when you open a gacha game and you're just bombarded. And to undermine his points even more, he tries to talk about how, you can win one of the tokens as a prize. Yeah, but in so many of these games, the only thing you can win as a prize is, just for participating in something, is the lowest value of token. But then you can only buy some tokens in massive bundles. Bundles that don't match the price of the product you're trying to buy.
It's intentionally a scam.
Which is a good consumer experience.
Exactly. And I think that what Bellier said right there really makes a lot of... I think that really just ties everything together. Is this a good consumer experience that is healthy for the user? The answer to that, I think, is obviously no. So whenever you have a system that exists as a parasite on the user, why does the system exist? Why is it not being regulated? And also, it's very important that the big difference between this and, let's say, buying cigarettes, for example, is that when you're buying cigarettes, you know what you're buying, and it's that simple. When you're buying this stuff, you're going through multiple levels of intentional obfuscation in order to confuse you about how much money you're spending. This is intentionally obfuscating, intentionally trying to make and impair the user's ability to make an informed financial decision that the company is doing while they are trying to sell them something. That is bad faith, unethical business. And I don't see how anybody can defend that.
Much as this just web of absolute goddamn insanity does make these companies a hell of a lot of money. And when he talks about wanting to make existing legislation stronger, well, yeah, Supercell would know all that they need to know about that.
I bet.
Because they've been accused of being non-compliant with UK loot box regulations.
Uh-oh.
Clearly, self-regulation and current legislation are not working for everyone.
Well, they don't want self-regulation, or they do want self-regulation because they can use that as a weapon to regulate smaller companies and pull the ladder up from them.
That's why we need these changes in the first place. But it is also true
That's the reason.
that he does have a bit of a point. These bodies should probably have a talk with the industry reps to implement changes in a way that won't have unintended negative impacts.
Yep.
And we have seen many examples of that. As an example, GDPR.
Oh.
You having more control over your data, all that privacy stuff, that's pretty great. But
I agree. I think it's
really
very good.
annoying having that pop up every time you go to a website and you got to install an extension to deal with the annoying thing. Yeah, that does kind of suck. I mean, I get the point. I agree with the principle,
yes.
but the implementation clearly isn't really that great. And where it risks getting worse is that today we've been talking about the concerns from big trade bodies and companies like Supercell. And here's the thing with those groups. They've got money. They can afford to be compliant with new laws, like, say, all the stuff that's been going on with the UK's Online Safety Act
Sure.
and similar laws around the world. The incumbents can fork up the cash to be compliant. They can do that. Hell, if the compliance is a real nightmare, then maybe you can be an entrepreneur and sell the solution.
Oh.
But the smaller teams, the people who are just on the cusp of being sustainable fiscally, well, they'll be hurt more. The worst case scenario.
This is always what happens with regulation, but it's something that should happen to everybody. You're right that it will negatively affect smaller companies more, but ultimately, I think that more transparency and making, like, think about what company would be against putting a dollar amount in regular currency next to every single transaction that you make inside of an in-game store. Think about what could the argument possibly be that is a bad idea and that's bad for the user. And that's the big problem that happens, is that I think a lot of people never think about basically why are people advocating for this? Yeah, all of them. It's less profit. Yeah, they're going to make less money.
Something that looks more like regulatory capture, that perhaps looks like the incumbents adapting to the regulation, but then the regulation being so onerous that new companies basically can't really get started up. That can be really bad. But to cut through all that fluff, something needs to happen. And the reason why is simple. A reckoning is coming, and we are very much on the clock. Here's the deal. The Digital Fairness Act is expected to be delivered in the next year or so. And what's happening right now is the ending of the consultation period for the virtual currency stuff. And clearly, after 12 weeks of consultation, well, these companies have been reacting in this way to make a point that they don't want the Digital Fairness Act legislators to treat them the way that the CPC allegedly treated them with all of that Swedish horse girl stuff. They basically want to
because they don't want to get regulated, because it's going to cause them to lose money. They can make arguments about how it's actually about bureaucracy, or it's actually about some sort of principle, but the only principle they care about is their principal balance. The truth is that the reason why they're trying to throw every wrench they possibly can into the machine is because the machine is making them money, or the machine can stop them from making money. I think that's probably a better way to say it. That's the reason why. Like, it's not any more complicated than that at all.
To make sure that their voices are heard. And you know what? That is their right. They are literally entities contributing to the economy within the EU. So yeah, they should have a seat at that table. I want them to be listened to and respected, but also treated with the skepticism that is due, because they are very much not unbiased here. And just as these companies need to turn a profit, they also need to do so in a way that is not predatory toward the public. And
that's the thing that I don't understand why people let and give this a pass. Because fundamentally what they're doing is misrepresenting what people are buying and making it confusing, and then relying on kids to make uninformed purchases that their parents aren't aware of. Everybody knows that's the way it works.
Ultimately, it's that last bit that's where I land. You can see enough horror stories of this stuff going bad, or even just the simple, basic goddamn thing. You look at your phone, there's a social media app that's just trying to play around with your brain chemistry to get you hooked. You open a video game, and now it's doing the same thing. There's all this predatory bullshit everywhere. I don't know about you, but I've had enough. And the profit of these businesses is, yes, relevant to them, the shareholders.
Yep.
But it's also not goddamn sacred. And the whole point of governments and bodies like these is that we can be represented.
Exactly.
And in some way, we have some buy-in to the rules of the game that everyone should be able to play fairly, which is a bit of a stupidly optimistic, lofty-ass goal. But in this case, you know what? If they make less money because they're not allowed to be as manipulative, and people lose their jobs because of that. That's okay.
Too fucking bad. Exactly, yes. If your job is relying on scamming people, that's what you get. If you have to rely on unethical business models in order to make money, too fucking bad. It's that simple.
Maximizing employment's not the only fucking goal. There's other stuff going on. There are negative externalities. That's another thing to consider. Yes, you could just deregulate gambling to the tits and then tax it and say, look at our number go up.
Yeah.
But then you can also think about the negative externalities on society that are a result of sad gambling bollocks.
There's a lot of gambling.
And don't worry, you guys in the US are heading in the direction that the United Kingdom has been in for a long ass time regarding the old online sports betting. Anyway,
sports betting is massive now.
I see the point. Yes, these guys should be listened to, etc., etc. Do you know what? We should have some say in the goddamn rules, and people have had enough. I know this wasn't the most light and breezy video in the world,
I appreciate this video. I definitely agree with this.
Next.
Yeah, I'm gonna be real. Like, I think this is a huge problem, and I don't know why these companies haven't gotten regulated already. And I think the reason why is that a lot of people, let me link you guys the video, give it a like. This is a Bellier video. I'm a very big fan of Bellier, like it a lot. And like him a lot, excuse me. And do betting in general. Yeah, and so anyway, playing games today, I'm not sure. Let me focus on this at least right for now. Good video, it's very aware. Yeah, I think the problem is a mix of corruption and ignorance, basically. I think a lot of these companies are ignorant and they don't understand what the real problems are. And because they don't understand what the problems are and they don't understand really what's going on, these companies are able to run laps around them and take advantage of them. Because a lot of the people in the government are either bought off or so stupid that they don't understand the nuances of these different programs and these different games and their monetization structures, right? So if they understood it better, they would be able to do it. But unfortunately, they don't. And so that's basically what I think is happening to them, right? The internet moves too fast for regulators. Well, not really. I mean, no, it doesn't. The thing is that if they were able to fix this, they could have fixed it in a lot of ways. Like, there's a lot of kind of like broad rules that they could have and then apply them to bad actors in the intermediary. I do want to say that the reason why these companies are talking about how bad this is, it's actually very simple. It's because it will cause them to lose money. There's no big reason why. There's no, explanation or anything like that. Like some sort of like principle to it. Absolutely not. It's just literally as simple as them trying to make things sound confusing so they can make more money off of you.